Hey everybody, my name is Mike Geldreich and I am the Work Comp Claims Director here at R&R Insurance Services. One of the things I get involved in my role is our annual Work Comp 101 seminar. I'd like to take just a couple minutes to talk to you today about something that I'm referring to as what's hot in workers' compensation. So of course, we're still in the grips of a pandemic right now. It's hard to watch a newscast or turn on the radio and not hear something about the coronavirus. And while it is a legitimate worldwide pandemic medical concern, it's also had some significant impact on workers' compensation in a lot of different job classifications, but certainly in the area of healthcare, fire service, EMS, and law enforcement. We're in a little bit of uncharted water there. How are employers and employees dealing with exposure to the virus? Vaccinations, are they mandatory? Are they voluntary? Is that something that should be or would be covered under workers' compensation? What if your employer requires you to have the vaccination and you develop some sort of illness or disability afterwards? How is workers' compensation going to look at that? And how is your injured employee going to be dealt with? Another area I'm going to dig into is cost-saving methods in workers' compensation and what are some emerging trends. I tell customers a lot, from year to year, there aren't major changes in workers' compensation. The laws and the statutes in the state of Wisconsin particularly don't really change a whole lot from year to year. And one of the challenges for the medical providers and the employers in this system is, how do we control medical costs? Wisconsin does not, and historically has had some pushback on having a medical fee schedule, such as some of our neighboring states do. And I'm not here today to tell you that I think that's right or wrong, but what can you as an employer do to attack some of the costs associated with workers' compensation? How does that impact, how does the variable cost of a workers' compensation claim impact your overall bottom line as a business? And what are some things that you, in partnership with your insurance carrier, can do to come up with creative ways to, I don't want to say attack, those are my words, but certainly address and try and get your hands around controlling some of those costs as we move forward in the world of rising costs for medical care. Another thing I'm going to talk about is social media usage. Certainly, social media, in my opinion, used to change year to year. Now we're in a world of ever-changing exposures in the area of social media, and how does that come into play in the world of workers' compensation? So what am I talking about? How are third-party administrators and workers' compensation insurance carriers, the medical community, how are they using social media to look a little bit deeper into compensability issues with current and ongoing workers' compensation claims? How is social media being used to address the issue of ongoing disability? And is someone really as disabled as they're claiming to be? It's very interesting. Most insurance carriers have pretty significant special investigative units, or SIUs as they're often called. How are some of those investigators using social media to get their hands around ongoing disability and workers' compensation claims? And lastly, one of the other areas that I'm going to dig into is understanding the financial impact of your losses on your experience mod. I have a lot of conversations in a given week with business owners and customers about the experience mod, and it's kind of a mystic number out there. What does that really stand for? How does that impact the overall cost of what your company or your organization is currently paying for workers' compensation? And then what can you do about that? I think a lot of times employers, regardless of class of business, may or may not have a very deep understanding of how one workers' compensation loss, be it good or bad, is something that you live with in the way of your experience mod rating for 3 years. A very small claim can, in a lot of ways, be helpful to you in your experience mod, and a very large claim can be very damaging to you over the time that workers' compensation claim lives in your experience mod. So one of the things I try and dive into with customers is understanding that, well, there are an awful lot of things in the world of workers' compensation that you as a business owner, you as an employer can control. Your experience mod is certainly one of those things that, working in partnership with your broker and your insurance carrier, by trying to have some oversight and some management on those workers' compensation claims and how they're handled, how the disability is managed, can certainly drive your hopefully loss experience down, as well as your ultimate financial impact from your experience mod. So those are just a couple of things that I see as emerging trends right now in workers' compensation. And those are a couple of the hotter topics, if you will, that we're going to take a deeper dive into. If this sounds interesting to you and you'd like to learn more about our workers' compensation 101 seminar and some of the things we're going to dig into, please click on the footnote below to get more information.